everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tisha Singh, and I'm the campus director at the University of Delhi South Campus, which is located in India. We will be beginning with an incredibly exciting conversation in a few minutes. But in the meantime, I would request all of you to please share your introductions in the chat box. Let us know your name, which university you belong to, and which country you're joining us from today. I would also like to call upon Sean and Isaiah to share their projects with us.
Okay. So, hi everyone. We are going to have Sean, a number of fellows presenting to us their projects, and Sean is going to talk about what he has been up to and the work that he's been doing. So over to you, Sean, and then we shall hear from Isaiah.
Yes, thank you for that introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Alexander. I'm a fifth year at Georgia Tech. My current project I've been working on is an SDG hackathon. Right now, it's going to be an international virtual hackathon with an in-person component on campus here at Georgia Tech. I'm super excited. I will be sending a message out shortly in the Discord for everyone to sign up. But also if they can pull up the flyer maybe. There's also a QR code to sign up. Highly recommend everyone because we have challenges curated of all SDG goals. So we're inviting everyone from policy, engineering, and computer science backgrounds. Basically anyone that would like to. You're then able to kind of sign up to participate on this November 10th through 12th. We have guest speakers and challenges and VIP judges from all over, including EY, Deloitte, along with one of the UN peace ambassadors as well. So I highly encourage everyone to sign up to participate. We already have over 100 participants and excited to see more coming in. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. I'm also one of the campus directors at Georgia Institute of Technology. Yeah, and then this is the flyer. So there's a QR code right there if you'd like to sign up.
Cool. This flyer will be shared in the chat box. And also, Sean, if you can share the link to where you'd like everyone to participate, that's
Yes.
also very fine in the chat box. So everyone can just follow the chat box through with the more information on the team, on the project that Sean and the team are working on to make sure that all SDGs, they bring together hackathon concerning policy and tech. We'll go to Isaiah to also tell us about the projects he's working on and just tell us about himself. Over to you, Isaiah.
Thank you very much, Grace. And thank you, everyone, for the platform and opportunity. So my name is Isaiah and I am from Nigeria, and I am currently a student at African Leadership University, Rwanda. I am studying software engineering. So I want to share my passion for Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is all about quality education. So, SDG 4 is particularly close to my heart because like quality education is the foundation for individual growth and the key to unlocking better future. And we know that education can like transform lives and bridge gaps and empower individuals to reach their full potential. So my project mainly is trying to address the pressing need of providing quality education and skill development opportunities to underserved communities in Rwanda. So the name of my project is Stimulate Rwanda. What this project is about is basically using STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to teach students, to teach kids from the age of 8 to 18 years how to immerse themselves in deep learning and understand the things that are not being taught to them in maybe school because they cannot afford quality education and things like that. So our approach is mainly to use holistic and comprehensive method of learning or teaching them. We provide them with age-appropriate STEM kits, including robotics, components, coding resources, and scientific experiments. Additionally, we include workshops and classes led by experienced educators and mentors to students. We also want to help them to sharpen their skills, intellect skills by introducing them to board games like chess and Scrabble. So mainly it is to immerse them and make them feel welcome, and also to give them the opportunity to learn the things that they're not able to learn in school. So mainly that's what STEM Lateranda is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaiah, and thank you everyone for listening in. If you'd like to share your project in our next upcoming webinars that are mostly based around emerging technologies, we shall share a link in the chat box where you can fill in your details and express your interest for sharing your project going forward. I'll hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Grace. And thank you, Isaiah and Sean, for telling us about your projects. I think they're a great way of demonstrating to us how we can leverage technology to further our social impact goals. I'm sure we're all familiar with the work that Sinead does and who she is, but nonetheless, I'll attempt to provide a small introduction for her before we begin with the conversation. Sinead Bovell is a first-generation Canadian born to an Irish mother and a Guyanese father in a city outside of Toronto. She spent the majority of her young adult life focused on academics, receiving a degree in finance, a minor in chemistry, and a master's in business from the University of Toronto before moving on to a career in management consulting. However, Sinead decided to leave the corporate world in order to make an impact on a larger scale. In 2018, Sinead founded WAY, which stands for Weekly Advice for Young Entrepreneurs, and shortly after launched WAY Talks, which is a series of monthly events where she educates young entrepreneurs on the intersection of business, technology, and the future. She made it her mission to bridge the information gap between young entrepreneurs and the digital future. In January 2021, Sinead was appointed to the United Nations International Telecommunications Union Generation Connect Visionaries Board to further champion the voices of youth to advance digital development and offer strategic guidance on youth participation and empowerment in digital cooperation. She is also a member of the IEEE Global Initiative Education Committee and the Tech and Concentration of Power Committee. We're delighted to have you here today with us, Sinead, and I would now request you to share your keynote remarks with us.
Great. Sorry, everybody, I wasn't able to unmute myself. Thank you so much for the introduction and for sharing your projects. They were all very, very inspiring. And I've been reading so much about what you are all doing, and it's incredibly inspiring and exactly in line with where we need to move in terms of building a future that works for everyone. And so I'll first also say, thank you to MCN and of course the UN Academic Impact for launching the Millennium Fellowship. And I did read that there were 44,000 applicants and 4,000 have been selected. So that's incredibly inspiring. And I think it also reminds us that there's no shortage of leaders in the world that want to make change. And that's also something that inspired me to start way early on, knowing that there are leaders all over that are mobilizing to bring about a future that works for everyone. Just sometimes the media doesn't profile all of that, but it doesn't mean that there aren't people out there really trying to build a future that works for all of us. And so in terms of a little bit about me, and then just a bit of how emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence can help us unlock social good. So what had been mentioned there, I grew up very, very focused on academics. And I knew I loved studying. I knew I loved math and analyzing. But for some reason, every time I took a job in the corporate world, it really didn't feel right. It didn't feel like these are the problems that I wanted to be solving, or the rooms that I wanted to be solving them in. And that's when I realized, because growing up, I often thought you could only build a career in lanes that already existed. So when I thought of entrepreneurship, I maybe thought about things like having a gadget or a product that you could make. I didn't realize you can actually create the field yourself if the problems that you want to solve and the things that you want to build don't exist. That's okay. Your future isn't confined to the lanes that you can see. It's all about the problems that you want to solve in the world, and to insert yourself in the conversations that inspire you. And to also always remember that there's no prerequisite to participating in conversations and projects that are going to impact your future. And so it was when I moved from the corporate world into the world of entrepreneurship, I realized there's a future with technology that's going to transform every aspect of how we live. And in my academic world, we talked about that and we were preparing for that. But there's so many other people that weren't invited to those conversations. And that's when I realized I wanted to start Way, a platform and a place for people to learn about technology in the future in a digestible manner and to shape the futures that we want to bring about. Because I think for a lot of us, it can sometimes feel like we wake up and there's 9 people in Silicon Valley coding our future, when all of us have ideas, have talents, have skills. We're just often not invited to the table or to the conversations. So that was really the inspiration behind Way. And in terms of even getting started and mobilizing, I leaned into tools like social media. I didn't have a big marketing budget or a lot of funding. I started to build my momentum on social media, doing also things like op-eds and simply inserting myself into the conversation. This is what's going to happen in the future. Here's how technology is evolving. I'm now going to be a voice in this movement. And that's really how I dove in. So when we move into some of the things that I actually work on, and of course, as a futurist, which would be kind of the official title of what I do, I analyze all sorts of emerging technologies, even things like patents that are being filed, different situations that are happening with countries. And I use that to build forecasts about where the future may be headed. And so for one thing, for example, if in 2016, 2017, I would have seen that patents were being filed by companies such as Apple and Google for new types of communication technologies. So the 2 biggest providers of smartphones are now patenting technologies that would directly compete with these smartphones, which allows you to forecast that smartphones will eventually go away and new technologies will replace them. And it's being led by some of the biggest smartphone providers. So that's some of the analytics of what happens in the world of a futurist. But when we look at technology for social good and emerging technologies for social good and things like data, I mean, there has never been a better time to try to change the world. And the tools that we have around us. So when you look at a system like ChatGPT or some of the AI systems around us, how I like to describe it to people is if there was a project that you wanted to work on or problems that you wanted to solve, how different would it be if you had 5 or 6 assistants or a team that could help you do these things? And that is exactly what the tools that are being built and the tools around us are. So say you have an incredibly important project, initiative, goal that you want to solve for the world, but you have only maybe 1 or 2 people on your project. You now have an AI system that can do the things like draft the first round of all of your marketing flyers and your campaign materials, a system that can come up with all of your social media captions. It can generate articles for your blog. Or maybe you want to start writing op-eds in your local newspaper or your local media channels about the things that you're working on. You have a system that can edit those op-eds or write them with you. Maybe you need to write letters to regulators or policymakers, something that takes a lot of time, and maybe you're doing a whole bunch of other things. You have systems that can do that and provide you with the high level points to help you take your work to the next level. So there really isn't a better time in terms of, doesn't matter how lean your team is. And even if it's just you have all of these tools around you. And here's another example. So coding, right? So maybe you have an idea for an app. And after doing my MBA, I actually did work on an app with a few classmates. But at that time, there was one person that had a bit of coding skills, but not enough to really build our app and take it off the ground. But maybe you have an idea for an app for social impact. So maybe I'm just gonna got a few notifications about things, but if you can all still hear me, then let me know. And so, for example, maybe you have an app that lets people know that there's a water station nearby that they can refill clean water bottles. Or maybe you want to assist refugees with paperwork and language translation. So you now have tools that can allow you to turn that idea into a reality with very little cost and resources. So AI, if there's one thing it can do, it's pretty great at coding. You wouldn't want to have nobody review the app, but you could have a system. You could ask an AI system the same way you would kind of text a friend in a group chat. Can you make me an app that allows people to take photos of documents, say immigration documents, and translate it into any language that that person may speak, and even provide voice translation? So maybe somebody isn't as good at reading. So not only can the person take a photo of their immigration papers, and then it will be translated into their language. There'll also be an audio component. And AI can do that with about 3 or 4 steps, with about 3 or 4 prompts from you telling it what you want them to create. And that's called a no-code AI system. So you really need very little coding skills to be able to do that, or to at least build the prototype and the proof of concept that can be out working in the field. And then it makes it a lot easier to maybe get investment or get government sponsorship on that project. So instead of maybe having to pay $100,000 to build an app, you can create the working prototype. Maybe you hire, a cybersecurity consultant off of a freelance platform to make sure that for the most part it's safe, and you have a working prototype on the market. And that's so much easier that we can jump forward and jump past all of these past historical challenges. But it's also about thinking in innovative ways. So if we now have AI systems, for example, that can generate code, that can understand what's in images, that can turn images into explanations and descriptions, what else could we solve with that? Maybe you want to understand how trees are changing as a result of climate change. So now you have an AI system that can, if you take photos of the areas that you're concerned about, that can track the smallest changes in those images. At the UN AI for Good Summit this summer, I learned about how a youth activist in Kenya deployed chatbots for women in rural areas where there wasn't access to medical care, to be able to ask questions about things like menstrual cycles that were taboo in some of these regions, and medical staff was out of reach. So they built these chatbots specifically to be able to answer those questions. AI can translate information on climate change to any language. Maybe now, if you are thinking of a global tutoring program, because of AI, you maybe only need one tutor, and their information could get translated into any language in real time across the world. But it's also about data, right? So data is incredibly important because data tells a story. It can give you insights about where we are in this moment. It can give you insights about who has access to things and who doesn't. And I'm sure there's some of you on this call today who have maybe used surveys as a way to understand how a certain population or a market feels about something, whether that's access to services, or how their elected officials are representing them or not representing them, or how social media has been impacting our mental health. But up until recently, it's been really challenging to pool together qualitative data. So you usually can ask somebody, at a score of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, how do you feel about this? Now with AI, you could ask people to describe how they feel. So it's not just about these 3 or 4 number categories. Write how you feel, and you can get a lot more insights. And AI can gather that data and that feedback and then analyze those survey results, which really expands the pool. I mean, for example, if you were to try to understand how social media is impacting young people, well, there's many different ways. It doesn't just fit into a few categories, right? From cyberbullying to mental health to addiction. So now with generative AI, you can ask people questions and have the AI analyze the qualitative and quantitative data and use that to tell a story. So maybe you send the survey to 2,000 people and there are 500 different responses. And we know that the AI is pretty good at this. Right now, it analyzes for certain restaurants on Yelp all of the reviews people write. So, this dinner was great, the soup was too cold, but the service was amazing. That's not something that can just fit into a quantitative category, but AI can now analyze that. Maybe you're very passionate, for example, also about water scarcity or combating climate change or deforestation. We know that there are thousands of satellites surrounding Earth right now that capture images of the Earth, forests, water, and share hundreds of images every single day that are publicly accessible. So the data about what's happening to our climate specifically and scientifically is there. You now have an AI system that you could just feed all of these images and say every month, you're able to find out that the deforestation is increasing, unfortunately, by this amount each and every month, because AI can analyze all of that data. So the sky is really, really the limit. Analyzing social media responses to a situation. So how are youth impacted by disinformation? Or maybe there's an event in the news and young people are talking about it, maybe on TikTok, maybe they're talking about it on, threads, wherever it may be. You have a system that can now analyze those responses. And there's drones that patrol illegal deforestation that you can tap into. Or maybe you have a video that your team has created to raise awareness about something. You now have AI systems that can understand what's happening in that video and narrate it for somebody who is visually impaired. You may have also heard, I'm sure many of you in this call have heard about systems like DALL-E, right? So you can generate art in an instant. Show me a photo of me on Mars, riding a horse. That's all interesting. But you know what people are also starting to realize? Instead of just generating art, what if we could use these systems to generate new medical formulas? So what if instead of just training these systems on images from people's social media, what if we trained them on all sorts of examples of existing molecules or illnesses and asked them to generate a new formula or a new antibiotic that could combat some of those illnesses in that data set? And that's exactly what's happening. So the same systems that we're using to generate funny photos are actually coming up with new pharmaceutical formulas. And it's not very expensive and it doesn't require any actual specific coding skills or data skills. And the sky is really the limit when it comes to that. And then in terms of so essentially anywhere that there's data, whether there's video, imagery, text, AI can help generate new content or generate insights. And another area that I'm really, really excited about as a futurist is synthetic biology. So you may or may not have heard of that term, synthetic biology. And I think it's going to be a bigger deal than AI. And what synthetic biology is, we will be able to program life the way we program computers. So maybe that means we're going to need to start, we know our climate is changing drastically for the worse. We know that we're losing farmlands. So we might need to be able to program crops to grow with a little bit less water. We can make that change. But it also means we can engineer microbes to eat plastic. So maybe these kind of single-celled organisms before ate one or a certain thing, we can engineer them to actually just get rid of all of these plastics. And these projects are happening all around the world. But outside of just engineering new molecules to do things, you also have systems, for example, called like a nanopore sequencing technology. So if you might remember with COVID, I think we all remember a little too well, there were systems that you would do your swab and they would put it into like a little sequencer and it would say if it was positive or negative. But what about if we had a technology as simple as that, just a simple kind of sequencing technology that, wasn't very expensive, that could tell you all sorts of things. So not just if you have COVID or not, but if you have Ebola or a flu or malaria, or if whatever you've put on that test tube is actually just a banana and nothing to worry about. It just, you had some plaque in your teeth and that's all that it's actually coming up in. There's technologies that exist right now. They used to be about $10,000 for a machine that you can kind of just drop a sample of organic matter and it could tell you if this is Ebola or an apple. Now it goes for $100. So how could that change healthcare in regions where people don't really have access to proper medical testing or proper healthcare facilities? But for $100, we could distribute these diagnostic materials. So when it comes to emerging technologies, there's really no limit on the ways in which we could change the world and drive good and drive social impact. It's just about ensuring that people who want to drive social change are aware of all of the technologies at their disposal and all of the different solutions they have to go and change the world. So I'll stop there. And I know we're going to do a little bit of a moderated conversation, so we can, I guess, take it from there.
Thank you so much for your initial remarks, Sinead. I think for me personally, I didn't know about synthetic biology, but I've gotten to know a lot in the past few minutes itself, and I'm excited to read more about it. But I think just going back to your journey as it's been transitioning from career in management and finance, and then moving into launching Way, that must have been a scary decision because finance and management are perhaps perceived as more stable careers as opposed to entrepreneurship, which comes with more risks. And there's also a fear of whether, your what you launch is successful or not. So how did you have the confidence, to know that the belief to know what you were doing would be successful and that you should go after it?
Yes, that's a really, really great question. And it was really scary. And you hit the nail on the head when you said one of them is more certain, a certain salary, and you can kind of see the career path. The other is essentially inserting myself into something that doesn't exist, into creating a lane for myself. And that's when I say you need to believe in the history of yourself. So maybe you're really good at school and you have that track record, or you're a really hard worker, or you are great at networking and socializing. All of those skills show there's no reason you won't be successful on this new path. You just have to believe in yourself and bet on yourself and believe in the history of who you've always been. And you've always made it happen. It's just a matter of now believing in this new space. And it's also about thinking, there's two risks, right? It's not, we think about stepping into entrepreneurship as the main risk, but isn't it also a really big risk living a life and working on problems that you aren't passionate about solving? And if there's something in the world that you want to change, I think it's a bigger risk to decide not to do that. And it doesn't mean that it's always the right time to just quit everything and just drop it. I'm not finishing high school because I have this thing. It doesn't mean that it's always the right time. I still worked for a little bit because I needed to have a little bit of funds to take that jump. I still finished all of my schooling and my studies, and that was really helpful in this new path. But it's also a risk to kind of say, there are so many problems that I'm passionate about solving, and I know I'm a dedicated worker. I know I'm good at what I do, and I'm going to choose not to do that because I'm a little bit scared. And to me, I realized that's actually the scarier choice to be making, to know that I'm not passionate about this, and these aren't the problems that I want to be solving.
Okay. I think that is a very useful insight for all of us as well. And when you spoke about there being multiple problems that we want to address, I think that's an issue where we face as well. When we look at the world around us and we see multiple issues that we want to address, but at the end of the day, we have limited bandwidth ourselves, and we need to be able to identify a particular issue and work towards that. So in your own journey, how did you identify that technology and youth entrepreneurship are the areas that you want to work in?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is really limitless. It's like, okay, I want to solve this and I want to solve that. But it really came down to, on the evenings, and this is kind of a test, if you're not, you have a lot of skills or you're passionate about changing the world, but we do only have a finite amount of time. If you were out for dinner with friends, or you got free time with classmates just to chat and talk about things you're passionate about, what are the topics that you go back to over and over? Or a test that I like to make, say it's in 10 years from now, you've built whatever it is that you've built, and your local news station is calling you because they need your opinion on a specific topic that only you know about. What is that topic? What have you changed the world in that they want to hear your take on it? And whatever those answers are, whatever the topics are that you can't stop rambling about with your friends, those are the areas you're most passionate about. And that's the area that you're likely to be super successful in, and not successful in terms of money or any of that, in terms of being aligned with the problems that you want to solve. Because you know that with or without a salary, with or without recognition, you're passionate about that topic. It doesn't really matter to you who's listening. You just can't get enough of it. And that to me was like, okay, these are the things at the end of the day that I keep going back to. This is where my curiosity lies, and it's worth pursuing. And also knowing that it doesn't mean you can't tackle other areas, but it's about aligning, okay, what is the problem that I really want to solve, and how do my skills align with that? And starting there and knowing that you can kind of scale over time.
Right. I was also curious to know about how you forayed into fashion, because I came across an article that you wrote in the Vogue about how you're a model and artificial intelligence might take away your jobs. So could you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah. Yes. So in terms of that, in terms of my career path, and one thing that wasn't highlighted there. So when I did my MBA and, I got that consulting job, I kept feeling very anxious and that this wasn't the life that I was supposed to be living. But at that time, I couldn't identify why. And even though I took a class under a futurist and I loved it to the point where friends and I from class started an app based on a school project that we worked on, I still couldn't think beyond the jobs that my school offered. And then, once I landed that consulting job, and I never felt further for myself, and I knew I needed to change my life, but I didn't know where to start. I was simultaneously, and I mean, if you were to bump into me on a Friday or a Saturday in Toronto, I was at the library. I don't consider myself a fashionable person. I'm still not a fashionable person. I don't necessarily care about fashion. I like just being comfortable and my own style. I don't care about what anyone else is wearing. But I was scouted by a modeling agency at a business event. And in my mind, at first, we weren't even allowed to read magazines in my house. But I thought maybe this is the door to create the version of life that I want to see. Maybe this is where I can really make an impact in a different way. And I didn't necessarily know how. And that's why Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, used to always say, the dots only connect looking backwards. So I didn't know how this new potential path could help me build a life that I didn't even know exactly what it was supposed to be. But I knew that this was a new path that I could bet on and that I could at least try, and that the current situation I was in wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take this risk. And so I quit the consulting job. I moved to New York, and I knew that fashion also offered something different. When I studied business, and at the end of the day, what makes a company successful? It's their competitive advantage, the thing that they can do differently from everyone else. When I thought, okay, I have all of this information on the future, on finance, on the economy, and now I'm in an entirely different field, the world of creativity and the arts. Is there something unique here? Can I take my information from an old world and apply it to this new one and stand out? And that's exactly what happened. And modeling became this platform where I was able to reach different voices and also hear and learn from different audiences what people are excited about, scared about, how prepared people were for the future. And so that's what modeling really came to be. And so remember that even if you think your background or the thing you are doing doesn't connect directly to the problems that you think you need to solve, that's a good thing. It's that intersection point, the things that make you different, that is something nobody else can compete on. And that's your competitive advantage. And also know your identity is very fluid, right? We have multiple different interests, and there's no reason why you only can do this one specific thing. It was my ability to then step into the world of creativity and fashion that allowed me to be more creative and think in more innovative ways. I think I would have been maybe too scared to just start hosting events and moderating panels had I just been in my corporate world, because I was so afraid to take risks in that world. When I stepped into the world of creativity, people take risks all the time. Somebody decides, I'm going to start singing a song and I'm going to drop it on Instagram, or I'm going to just step into the world of being a DJ. I was surrounded by all of these creatives that just did it, and they just went for it. And so that played a big role in what I ended up creating, and it allowed way to have a different platform. And as you had mentioned in the article, in that world, I recognized, what does automation and AI mean for creatives? And that was when I wrote an article a few years ago in Vogue that said, I'm a model and I know AI will eventually take my job. So it gave, but that's something I would have never written about years before. So, you know, the thing that makes you different is your superpower.
I think that's a really great quote for us to take away as well. I'd now like to open up the floor to the rest of the fellows for any questions that they may want to ask Sinead. Feel free to raise your hand in case you want to unmute and ask her a question, or you can share your question in the chat box as well. Yes, Elijah, please go ahead. I think Elijah might be facing certain issues. Sahi, if you can hear us. Elijah, can you hear us?
I
think we
can
can move. Yeah. Please go
sure,
ahead,
okay.
Sahi.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sinead, and thanks to the other speakers as well for talking about your project. I'm an electrical engineering major myself, so I do want to start out within the technology background in my undergrad, and then hopefully over the course of my career, move to a more business position. I was wondering what sorts of technologies you think you should prioritize when you're younger to learn. There are lots of technologies out there. There's different like product management technologies, like team management, and then there's much harder like coding languages and things like that. What part of a software or hardware product do you think has like the most weight in it? And in terms of someone who wants to pursue leadership later on, do you think technical skills are all that important to know, or rather a higher level overview of them or like an intuition is sufficient?
Sinead, you're on mute.
There we go. Yes. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think it's, first of all, I do think technical skills are really important. And it doesn't matter that AI is getting better at code, because you're not going to allow an AI system to build on its own an app for the emergency room, or an app for the hospital, or an app for, you know, nuclear facilities for an organization without having a human in that loop. And so I think understanding how these technologies work is incredibly, incredibly important. In terms of, does it make more sense to be on the product management side, or maybe on the R&D side? I think it's less about exactly where you are in the exact pipeline of technology and in the supply chain. It's more about understanding how these technologies work more broadly, how you can create these technologies, and how they're likely to morph over time. And also, it's a lot more about the skill of being able to learn and understand how these technologies change and being able to update your skills accordingly. Because even today, if you specialize in one aspect of maybe product management, or one aspect of a coding language, we know in time, especially a technology like AI, it learns new tricks over time. So there's not one skill set that is just going to be one and done. We're going to constantly be going back to the drawing board and learning new skills. So I think it's less about being in one specific area, more about just immersing yourself in any of the areas of the types of problems that you want to solve, learning how to work with these systems, whether that's on the product side, whether that's on the R&D side, and then having that, if you want to be in leadership in a tech company, it's just about being directional in the steps that you take. So it's less about the very specifics. Maybe I'm on the product side, maybe I'm on the research and development side. That the small kind of differences in that, it's not too important. It's more about, are any of these a directional step to where I want to go? And the answer, based on all of the different things that you had put forward, is yes. Any of those would be directional in the path that you want to go.
Thank you for your answer, Sinead. Elijah, you can go ahead and ask your question now.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone based on your location. I'm Elijah Sardenix from West Africa, Liberia. Student at the African Methodist Episcopal University, reading economics and public administration. 2022 graduate of the Millennium Fellowship, members of the Millennium Fellowship. I'm so glad to be part of the great meetings. I've heard a lot from our facilitator, which I have questions. Within our
I think there might be a network issue on Elijah's end. Maybe we can come back to his question later on. Elijah, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm getting you. I use AI to do some work. So my question is, what are the best way to maintain your job within an environment where AI operates? What are the best way to maintain your job within an environment where AI operates?
Mm-hmm. Very great question, and an important one, because the truth of the matter is there isn't going to be a job where AI isn't going to operate. And so what AI isn't going to come in and kind of take somebody's entire job. We have very narrow AI systems. So the system that could recommend you a movie on Netflix couldn't then go and analyze your financial, quarterly results. AI can do very specific tasks. It's about understanding which tasks AIs are equipped to do, understanding how then you can lean in and delegate those tasks to an AI, and then excel at the remaining tasks that an AI can't do. So maybe you are a marketer, and I think you may have heard the saying, AI isn't going to take your job, a person who uses AI is. And that's much more of the case, right? It's not that a robot is barging in on Monday and it's all over for you. Somebody that understands which tasks they can outsource to an AI system, and then therefore save a lot more time and work on a lot more strategic things. And you can think about it as, imagine somebody didn't know about email. So it's not that the company deploys email and that person's suddenly fired. It's that for those specific tasks where you need to communicate with people, you're kind of still being the inefficient one that maybe has to mail things because you haven't learned email. So it's just about what are the specific tasks that this technology in my job is likely equipped to be able to do, and understanding how to delegate it to that technology. So the first step is identifying the tasks that an AI can do. And the second is you need to know how to co-create with that AI system. How do you speak the language of the AI? And that's not in the language of coding. It's in the language of delegation and prompting. So you are, a scientist trying to uncover this molecule, whatever it is that you're doing in your job, and knowing how to extract what the best thing possible from an AI system. And so I always also tell people, whatever job or industry that inspires you, every month, every few weeks, just Google how AI is changing that role, or what AI is capable of in the world of marketing or whatever field it is. And you'll see how AI can be used. And then that's even just enough to kind of keep you up to date. But lean into these systems, identify the tasks that AI is best at, and then start practicing with the ChatGPTs of the world on asking AI to do those things.
You're on mute, Elijah.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the answer. That is a great answer. I have another question. And do you believe that AI has the propensities of another person losing their job? With that, I've understand the essentialness of AI and I welcome it within the society. And I, in person, use AI many days. But I believe in terms to because I read economics, I understand about unemployment and employment. So bringing up technologies that will, comes within our society that will help to increase. But on the other side, if you look at it economically, it will bring an effect within the society. So do you believe that AI have an effect on another person losing their job?
I do think there will be job change and job loss, but not in a way that's necessarily different from before. I mean, the job of a data scientist didn't exist 10 years ago. And now look how many data scientists are needed. The job of a social media manager didn't exist 15 years ago. Now, if a company doesn't have a social media platform or person, you're probably not going to make it. And this job didn't even exist. Technology invented it. The entire creator economy was invented because of technologies like the internet and smartphones. So yes, I do think AI will automate some jobs, of course, as any technology will and has, but it's going to lead to entire, not even just new jobs, new industries that we can't even imagine yet. And that's why it's much more important that you have the skill of being able to learn and being able to think, because it's going to just bring new problems to solve and new opportunities to the table. Can you learn enough and quickly enough to meet the moment where those skills are? So you could also say maybe 8 years ago, somebody who is really good at or starting to learn about video editing would have an advantage in today's world, and they would. So it's about being able to just continue to update those skills.
Thank you for your question, Elijah. I'd now like to take up a question which someone has asked in the chat box. Queen asks, how can we keep up with the new technologies? How can we ensure we stay updated with the emerging technologies? I would really like to know, because sometimes I feel I'm getting left behind and the world is moving so ahead, especially being from a developing country, but I would always want to stay up to date. And she asked this particularly in reference to the health sector.
Yes, that's a really great question. So one kind of easy way is to follow the social media accounts and the blogs of people in that industry that are sharing important insights. And then therefore they curate and bring right to you the latest breakthroughs in the moment that are happening in that field. So maybe you look at the top 10 voices in AI and healthcare on LinkedIn, or the top 10 voices, just Google the top 10 voices in AI, in AI healthcare, or in space satellite technology of this moment. And you follow them on all of the different social media accounts. You subscribe to their blogs, and you stay up to date with all of the different information that they're posting and curating for you. That's one way that's kind of like an easy hack. And basically every morning I wake up, I check the newsletters and the different blog posts and the different LinkedIn posts of the people in industries that I'm inspired by or think I need to learn things in. And it's been an absolute game changer. And it's one kind of simple hack to be able to feel like you're staying up to date. And then when they say stuff, maybe they don't go fully into detail, but it's piqued your interest. Oh, that one post, I actually want to learn more. And then you go and kind of, learn more about that. But always try to stay up to date with the 5, 10, 15 top voices in that industry that you're interested in, and keep tabs on what they're doing and what they're sharing.
I think that's a really great way for us to stay up to date in a world that feels inundated with information at all times. The next question, which is in the chat, is sometimes one can feel like they aren't doing enough, even though they're trying really hard. I wonder if you experience this and how you dealt with it.
Every single person feels this way, especially in the age of social media, that makes us feel like we're behind in our own life and that everybody else has figured it out and is achieving so much more than you. And just know that that is not the case. It's all kind of a facade and a scam. It's kind of a scam in some ways. It's not about what anyone else is doing or where anyone else is in their journey. It's just about you and the things that you want to learn and the things that you want to build. And also giving yourself the time and the grace, knowing that things take time to build. And social media can make it feel like everything's instantaneous because people only share the thing when it's done, or they only share once they've been on that panel, right? They don't share all of the kind of behind the scenes that go into it. So think less about what everyone else is doing. There's no such thing as being behind in your own life, because you're the only person in that life. It only happens when you start to try to compare yourself to what somebody else is doing. And they're on an entirely different journey than you and have started from an entirely different place and are going somewhere else. So it's much better to not look at any anybody else what they're doing as kind of a competition or as a reason as to why you're late. You're on your own journey. You have your own superpowers, and it has nothing to do with anyone else.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think we are running out of time, so we can take one last question. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Osahen, would you like to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, good day, everybody. It's a lovely section so far, and I've really, really learned a lot. Thank you so much. My name is Osahere Agbogun from Ambrose Ali University, Nigeria. So my question is this. Earlier you spoke about how you do things and then no one around you is in line or things like that. So how do you go about it when you feel like harnessing these technologies and AI, but then it feels like in your region or community, no one is making use of it, nobody is capitalizing on it, nobody making effective use of it. How do you go about it when it feels like, okay, there's like this boundary or limitation, like limiting you from harnessing these opportunities that AI is bringing or technology is bringing? What do you advise one does in a situation like this? Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Sinead.
There we go.
We can hear you now.
It's a really great question. And I think it's important to recognize that the impact AI is going to have on this world. There's a reason why countries, companies are all repositioning to try to capitalize on this moment. So even if you find some of the local initiatives or the things you do on the day-to-day, people aren't leaning into it, that's entirely okay, because you're going to continue to build your skill set in it and be that leading voice. So when other communities wake up to the moment, you're the one leading it. And sometimes that's what it's about, right? So we can often think, well, nobody else is worried about this or building it or leaning into it. Well, maybe that's because you're going to be the first one and you're going to be the leader, the person who's skilled in it. And maybe that's actually all the part of the journey and the skill set that you're engineering and the competitive advantage that you're going to build. You're the one that's taking the first steps. You're going to be that leading voice. And that could be an actual path for you. And that could actually be how it's all shaping up. So not to get discouraged. I mean, there were times when I was the only one talking about anything. I felt in some ways that I was kind of like yelling into a void about technology in the future. And people were like, that's interesting. Okay. And just kind of moving on. And then the moment caught up. And now so many more people have woken up to this moment. And it's because I inserted myself in those conversations that I believed in and that I knew were important. And if you just continue to build, you keep believing in what it is that you're learning, what it is that you're passionate about, the moment will come when your preparedness is going to meet an opportunity and you're going to be ready to seize it and to capitalize on it.
Thank you, Sinead. I know we're already running out of time, but if it's all right with you, could we take 2 more questions from the fellows?
Sure.
If that's not an issue. Thank you so much. Eshanju, you can go ahead and ask your question. Can you hear us? Or we can, yeah, go ahead.
Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yes. I'm Johnson from I'm Johnson Asianzu. I'm very privileged to have this opportunity. I'm at Kampala International University in Uganda, and basically, my question will be more likewise like a question that was asked previously before. Although I will want to be more specific in terms of currently, as you see the world as it stands right now, what as I'm sure you've been to different health centers, and I'm going to ask the question from a medical perspective. You've been to different health centers and you've seen how things are going or working in there. As an individual that receives medical services, what do you think in the medical sector as for you what do you think what new thing do you feel that the medical sector may require in regards to AI that you don't see happening in the next few years?
And when you say the medical sector may require, do you mean people who are working in medicine may require, or how will the industry more broadly change because of technology?
Both.
Okay, so if we start with the industry, we know that medicine is a field that requires a lot of knowledge, memorization, and then also being able to diffuse that knowledge in real-time situation. But it also requires things like analyzing imagery, scans of people's bodies, looking for small lesions and data, something that AI is a lot better equipped to do than the human eye. So in any part of the medical industry that involves analyzing imagery, a doctor is going to co-create with an AI system there. And we've already seen it in radiology, where doctors will likely have AI do the first round of analysis on any of that imagery. It would give them the recommendation, and then the doctor would just kind of validate that that is in fact true. But the same goes through for diagnostics. I mean, essentially the future of medicine, especially in the next 10 to 15 years, every doctor will be paired with an AI system that's been trained not only on one specific field, because right now medicine is broken up into, maybe you're a gastroenterologist, maybe you're a brain surgeon. Now we'll have AIs that are trained in all of that. And for the first time, imagine a physician that takes the entire body approach as a specialist. That is how medicine's going to move. And physicians will be always co-creating with an AI system, always running through and being able to personalize medicine. Because even if you look at something like cancer diagnoses, a very terrible, very challenging disease, and it's usually split into 4 categories: stages 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's not because that's how cancer actually just fits. It's very customized to each individual person, but it's impossible to be able to measure exactly where somebody is. And so instead we do these broad categories. AI will allow us to get that detail very specifically, and not only then know how cancer is manifesting in somebody's specific body based on their own cells, take those cells and use AI to generate a customized medication or treatment based on that person's specific disease. So medicine and healthcare is going to be absolutely entirely transformed. And if you think about the testing technology that I talked about, the sequencer, medicine is going to also become a lot more preventative. So imagine once a week, you just dropped a little blood sample or, a sample of fluid onto these sequencers, and it lets you know, something's not right this week, something's brewing. And so before things even become a problem, we're going to have systems that start to flag it. So there's many ways healthcare is going to transform, largely for the better. And it will require physicians to learn how to co-create with AI systems, to be comfortable leaning into these systems and knowing how to work alongside them.
Thank you, Sinead, for your response. I know we all have a lot of questions that we want to ask her, given your vast expertise in this field, but we'll take one final question from Stanley. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. Stanley, can you hear us? If not, we can move on to Daniel.
Dennis?
Hello?
Yeah, Stanley, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. All right, my name is Stanley Eswen, and I'm from the African Metal Episcopal University, Liberia, West Africa. We are talking about emerging technology, and we're talking about AI. Now, those of us from sub-Saharan countries find it difficult to have access to modern technology. Now, if we are who are differently able, we've been left behind when it comes to emerging technology. Now, how do we get factor in when it comes to the issue of AI and other devices that have to do emerging technology? That's my question.
Access. Who is going to get left? Who's getting left behind? Who's not getting included? And that's something, that's something that the work I do with the ITU, the UN's ITU on digital inclusion and access to technology, and know that there are countries and companies all around the world, Microsoft being one of them, mobilizing to help bridge that digital divide and give people access. In terms of where AI becomes a bit more interesting, is there's less digital skills required to use it because the interface is just being able to converse. So in some other technologies, even learning how to operate on a computer or trying to use virtual reality, smartphones will be powered with the AI. So if you have an access to a smartphone, you do and you will in some ways have access to the best frontier AI systems. So to know that that's coming, but it's a very, very important question. And it's something that many people around the world in all different regions are actively mobilizing on trying to solve. And it's something that I think we need to do a lot better on, because it does seem like it's just a few countries that are kind of leading the charge and that certain people get access to. But know that the one thing with AI as an emerging technology is that the skill of AI is actually communication. It's not necessarily a tech skill. And so it's a bit different, the question of kind of, falling behind. But I think access is a really, really important one. I know there's companies all around the world trying to solve this, but they need to be moving a lot faster and do a lot better.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for answering all of our questions, Sinead. I think the past hour we've had an incredible time learning so much from you, and we've got to know that AI is such an incredible tool to leverage in our own social impact journeys. And I'm sure in the times to come, we'll only learn more about what a valuable asset this tool can be. So thank you for joining us. If there's any way that our fellows can stay in touch with you, be it through social media, it would be great if you could share that in the chat box. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me and for all of your amazing questions. It was such a pleasure. And to even doing the reading ahead of time about all of the work that you're doing, it's very, very inspiring. And know that your voice, it really, really matters. Insert yourself in any conversation or any problem that inspires you. You have just as much right to be there as anybody else. So in terms of where you can stay up to date, I post a lot of stuff on social media, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. If you want to add me on LinkedIn from today, just let me know in the message request that we met here. And that's really helpful. But yes, I'm very, very active on social media.
Thank you so much, Sinead.
And I put just add Sinead Bovell. Perfect. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you to all of the fellows for joining us today. We have 2 webinars coming up soon, so please keep an eye out on your inboxes for that. On Saturday, we'll be having our 3rd conversation hour, and on Tuesday, we'll be having the next webinar with Andrew Maynard. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much and have a good rest of the day.